So, folks, we are going to talk about Whatifalthist, a man who is crazy, a man who is unfortunately a prominent conservative, who, you know, he's got about 730 some thousand subscribers on YouTube, and runs in circles with the likes of Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel. He has been on a number of influential podcasts as well, and is unfortunately someone that is weirdly relevant in ways one wouldn't expect usually. He's also been involved in like Gen Z think tanks from the conservative far right end of the spectrum. He's weirdly well connected with a lot of genuinely psychotic, like conservative figures that you might be familiar with. And so we keep coming back to this well to just see what the hell is going on with this guy, because, you know, Elon Musk retweets him, and that is reason enough to worry. I thought Whatifalthist was nice. I haven't seen him in ages, though. Well, I did an in-depth breakdown of several of his now deleted manifesto videos, in which he claimed to have been to the spirit world and talked with and been God, and talks about divine eugenics and mystical bloodlines, and basically regurgitates a bunch of esoteric Nazism as if it's his own personal religion. Yeah, he was chilling with Odin and Jesus Christ. And, yeah, I would not describe him as a chill person in any respect. So, let's, he has been God. Yeah, look, if you want to, look, I personally sat through and talked about the 12-hour-long manifesto he put out there, so you guys can go watch that if you're curious about it. We are going to, however, today watch his latest video, which came out about 5 days ago and is entitled, "This Entire Reality is a Lie." And the image appears to be "Modernism is wrong?" ? And on the left you have science and technology, and on the right you have God and books. So, you know, that seems coherent. Let's take a look, shall we?
Some truths are so enormous that words cannot convey them. The smallest and the greatest things can only be conveyed in silence, since they are too grand to be able to talk about them. That's how I feel about what I know now. I've seen something so enormous that it's like the sky is a different color now, but then I run into normies who still see the world in the old way. They can't understand that their own worldview just doesn't work. It's a false reflection they've made.
Oh no, these are not, the script is not AI generated, I guarantee you. AI could never.
That doesn't make sense once you start pulling at the different threads that tie it together. When I was a teenager, I still belonged to the blue pill world. I had never thought much about the blank slate. There was nothing written on the differences between men and women or different races yet. People didn't talk about so many things, and we lived in
Jesus, we're less than a minute in, and you're talking about different races already? Come on, man.
The blank slate. There was nothing written on the differences between men and women or different races yet. People didn't talk about so many things.
Yeah, all of the differences between the races. Okay, bud.
We lived in ignorance through emission. It's really remarkable how arrogant we were and how we thought we had—
Oh yeah, no. Alan Smith, in case it wasn't clear when I talked about how he believed in divine bloodlines and divine eugenics. Yeah. He thinks that there are not only genetic differences between the races beyond just skin color, he thinks there are genetic differences between the rich and the poor. He thinks you're genetically destined to have like a sense of justice or like a sense of morality. Like, it's full on eugenics.
total knowledge on how the world worked. We were controlled since we focused on the little things that don't matter, which allowed us to ignore the big picture things that actually do. The big picture involved everything that really did matter between our
Well, yeah, of course it's not true. He's fucking nuts. But unfortunately, his particular brand of fucking nuts is a mainstream component of the conservative movement.
Of identity, religion, economics, mating, or the direction of our society as a whole. It was stolen from us as we were told to focus on making money and hedonism instead. In the last 7 years since I graduated high school, and I'm 24 now, I went through a very important journey. I gradually deconstructed how the entire world we all used to live in for our whole lives were false. None of this is real, and it's all a lie. This story feels very important to me, but there's not an archetypal frame to explain it in our society, so I don't really know how to articulate it to most people I talk to, which is why I don't.
Okay, I do want to ask, anyone in the audience, how long do you think it's going to take him to get to the first text wall? Honestly, I'm kind of surprised we haven't encountered one by the 2-minute mark, although technically we're at 1:52. 5 minutes? Like, what are your guesses? Next frame. I've not pre-watched any of this. Next 5 minutes. 7 minutes? 13 minutes. Okay. 2 more minutes. All right.
In short, none of this is real, and it's all a lie. This is a theme I've spoken about in several previous videos, with some prime examples being the greatest lie ever told, or my video on the rise and fall of the blue pill, about how the 20th century built a Plato's cave of comfortable illusions. Lots of people can understand that in certain topics like politics or with trans, that we've been deceived. But
or with trans. Just as we get our entire other category.
They're both so-called philosophers that are really just morons that think they're all that, and they're just not.
Damn, some Plato slander in here. God. Quickly, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you for supporting the stream. Very much appreciated, and you're wonderful. But yeah, the trans deceived everyone. Like Saruman. We are the evil doers, nefariously plundering the forests for our estrogen and testosterone.
What I've found is this goes so much deeper. Once you flip the log over, you'll find it's been completely eaten out by worms and insects already. This is a video to dissect.
But like, these are just helpful little guys. Why are you mad at these earthworms, man?
Our rotting basement of a worldview and show why the entire old world we've spent our lives in was all a lie.
Oh shit, let's go. With a premise like that, you can't miss.
One of the biggest lies in our reality is that we're past the age of war.
What?
War still captures the minds and imagination of many who play war games.
What?
And
there are wars going on right now. What are you talking about? What?
Possibly the best war game out there is the epic online game War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive.
I can't believe this guy gets sponsorship deals. It's nuts.
Vehicle war game ever made, with more than 2,500 different planes, tanks.
A lot of people think we don't have war anymore, but they're wrong and stupid because we have War Thunder. Like, what? Oh god. Yeah, he didn't even do the audio right on the ad.
Helicopters and ships that you can use in the most epic combined arms PvP battles. Every vehicle is completely modeled down to its component parts, with designs from the 19...
What the fuck is he saying? Dude is talking about how, like, War Thunder is the only war you'll ever need, and I'm only lightly paraphrasing.
20s to the present. What I find especially cool—
Skip it, you're giving him ad revenue? Nah, one of the things that personally fascinates me is how these conservatives do their ads and transition into and out of them, because I find it very funny.
About this game is that there are no hit points. The vehicles take damage to their crew and parts, creating a really immersive experience. War Thunder is one of those timeless games that's available everywhere, be that PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and even on your phone, with all the new mobile version, so you can take the game with you wherever you go.
And therefore, you can show everyone on your phone that war still exists. See? It's on your phone. Because everyone else is too big of a stupid moron to know that countries still fight wars.
Join a community of over 95 million players. Those of you that are new or returning after 6 months on PC or console also get a massive free bonus pack. So try War Thunder today and use the links in the description to get a free bonus pack featuring vehicles and boosters.
God, it just feels so weird and gross.
Part 1. A failing of human nature. Before we get started, I want to clarify what I mean by the word worldview. In German philosophy, the word worldview carries all of the connotations which make sense in their culture, which we don't have in an English-speaking context.
I don't know, man. I feel like worldview, I feel like you don't need to describe what a worldview is. Like, it's kind of in the name. Your personal view of the world, your perspective.
For example, the German concept of worldview is an all-encompassing vision of how reality works, which will—
Yeah, a vision of the world, one might say.
Will vary by civilization. This is where the term Islamic or Western world comes from. This matters since it changes what the term world even means. A lot of people perceive the word world, and I find that funny because word is an Old Norse word for destiny. So it's—
Oh no, okay, this is gonna be one of his, alright, we're getting into some, there's a non-zero chance in this video he breaks out some numerology. He's getting into some of his religious beliefs here, and all right. I do want to remind everyone he at one point talked about having to write Odin a letter about his gooning habits. I'm not going to elaborate, but I hope it doesn't go in that direction here.
Sort of the destiny of the world, which is how worldviews work, is it shifts from the end of the world, meaning the end of all human life, to the end of a sort of civilizational vision, which you could see with—
Yes, he visited the spirit realm and then wrote about his gooning habits for Odin. I'm not kidding. You can watch I covered it. God help me.
The fall of the Greco-Roman classical ecumene, or the known world. Alternately, I will reference the modern versus early modern or medieval worlds. For each of these, they inhabit often the exact same physical areas as different worldviews.
Man, why are you explaining worldviews as a concept?
But if you talk to a deconverted here, you can get into entire discussions about what weird is.
None of this has any bearing on what a worldview is in the present context of the language we are currently speaking. And it's frustrating because he's like, yes, I will be talking about the medieval world and the world of the Middle Ages. And it's like, yeah, you could just say you're talking about medieval times or the Middle Ages. People are going to intuitively know what you mean by that. Also, the fucking maps, man. God.
But had such wildly fluctuating ideas on how the world worked that in some ways they're almost different fantasy novels. We really underestimate how the way most people in history perceived the world is significantly closer to the Warhammer Fantasy universe than our vision of the world today.
We have now entered Warhammer 40K is historical territory. Warhammer 40K is actually exactly how ancient peoples viewed the universe. You see, when early man looked up at the stars, they said, what if there was a psyker so powerful that 40,000 years hence, he was sitting atop a golden throne, being fed the mental energies of 10,000 of us every day? You see, Warhammer 40K is inscribed from the spirit realm onto the dreams of the authors of the Warhammer 40K universe. It was all predicted a millennia ago.
He projects nihilism onto other eras of
Yes, no, he is showing fantasy images of Warhammer and Warhammer 40K.
history unconsciously, since it's so prevalent and all-consuming for our society. I think the history of psychology and consciousness has the potential to be something of profound importance.
Can we just also take a moment? This is the stock footage he chose of a kid going to therapy. And this is the least comfortable therapeutic setting I think I've ever seen in my life. Just a creepy little mannequin and in a stark white room on uncomfortable chairs with a creepy dude staring at you.
And consciousness has the potential to be something of profound importance if done correctly. The way humans perceive the world has changed radically over history, and often in very brief time periods. I mean, think of how much our vision of the world has changed within the last century or the last lifetime, and then
yeah, probably because it's related to changing geopolitical situations, because, nations are socially constructed.
Magnify that over thousands or millions of years. There's a really brilliant book called The Passion of the Western Mind by Tarnas, which breaks down the course of Western...
I'm just really curious, because, a decent chunk of the time when he mentions an author, they're sussy as hell. Oh, good. When I Google him, just the initial result, historian and astrologer. That's a good sign. Just a noted astrologer. Cool. This is reminding me of the time I went on a date and then hung out with my date and her friends at a gay bar. And one of her super depressed friends came by. And I never went on a second date with this lady. But her friend took a liking to me and told me all about his life as a gay man who had been diagnosed with I forget exactly what it was. I think it might have been colon cancer or something. And his fiance broke off the engagement because he was only given a few months to live. And so he used his pharmaceutical job to get a bunch of drugs and just partied and was high all the time. And then he beat the cancer. And so now he was back in town to get revenge on the man who left him. And I was just listening politely the entire time. And this man, I swear to God, had a suitcase just full of drugs with him, and just offered me some, and I was like, no, I'm good, but thank you. And then he was like, you know what? No, you know what? I get you. I know what you'd like. I think you'd like this neuropsychology book that my grandfather wrote. Here. I'm gonna buy it for you. And so he deadass ordered me an academic textbook that his grandfather had written about neuropsychology, and I have no idea if it was any good or not. I did get it, and I think I might still have it somewhere. But one of the weirdest interactions I've ever had in my life. But Rudyard strikes me as a very similar person very not doing so great kind of guy. I'll see if I can find it sometime.
Intellectual history into a 3-part segment and then tries to explain the core contention and a way each worldview worked.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Tarnas featured in the 2006 film Anethogen, Awakening the Divine Within, a documentary about rediscovering an enchanted cosmos in the modern world. Oh, he's also written LSD Psychotherapy, Theoretical Implications of the Study of Psychology. Okay, the Tarnas is very into LSD. Good to know. Cool.
He splits it into the Greek, medieval, Christian, and modern worldviews. For reasons I explain in this text wall, we often radically misinterpret how ancient or medieval things...
Okay. Somebody guessed 7 minutes before we see the first text wall. And whoever guessed that was correct. I actually was thinking it was going to happen much earlier, but we have arrived at the first text wall, and we must, of course, climb it. Now, I would, of course, usually I try and read this in a Jordan Peterson voice, and I am going to try to do that, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to keep up the voice the entire time. He can't just say what this wall is saying. No, you guys are acting like he wrote this out. Which he did. You guys are acting like he's reading off of a script right now. Which he is. And couldn't just say all of this shit. The reason that modern thinkers often get ancient writers wrong is that our worldview comes with lots of different assumptions that we don't think about. Our neurology is literally different from theirs. There is. For example, in alchemy... Oh no. Oh no. Oh boy. Oh no. Okay, we're in alchemy territory. All right. Okay, Nicholas Flamel, are we going to do some sorcerer's stone shit? All right. As above, so below, motherfuckers. For example, in alchemy, the 4 elements are water, earth, air, and fire. These are pre-modern ways of saying the main 4 types of matter are liquid, solid, air, and combustion. What? No. What? And no, none of that is right. No, it's all. Oh no, it's all full of spelling errors every single time, Sarah Scorpion. Every single time. That's immediately comprehensible to us when phrased that way, but the 4 elements sound silly otherwise. That's since ancient people didn't view the world in a highly literalistic way like we do, which is caused by the Industrial Revolution rewarding precision. We judge them by standards which didn't exist in their era, which, the idea that ancient people didn't care about precision is incredible to me, because you can find ancient people that actually gave a huge shit about precision when it comes to like the movement of planets and the movement of the stars and the constellations, etc., etc., etc. Like you can find people that had extremely advanced knowledge and mathematics to track these things. The idea that precise knowledge was impossible until the Industrial Revolution, that's some horse shit. Like, honestly, it's some like ancient aliens level horse shit. Like, oh, they couldn't have possibly been advanced because they were indigenous people, so the aliens must have done it for them. Like, it's racist bullshit. Like, I don't know, like, you try sailing across the entire Pacific Ocean with the stars as your guide. Like, fuck you. But it continues. Alternately, when Thales says that all matter is water, he could be saying that all things are motion, or water like the alchemical tradition. This is most obvious with religion, where for modern people, if you can't photograph God and have him admit his existence in lab, he doesn't exist. Meanwhile, for pre-modern peoples, they would see the natural laws of physics or the consistent principles in human nature as evidence for the will of God. Modern people think if some thing isn't replicable in a lab, it doesn't exist, which they didn't think back then. Thus, we have different definitions for what even the word world real means. Again, there are so many spelling errors here. Dreams were real in a lot of cultures. But like, wait, okay. So one, yeah, for the purposes of the scientific method, you need to be able to demonstrate the existence of a thing, and you need to be able to replicate said demonstrations of the existence of a thing. Like, that's a necessary component of building our base of knowledge, right? And yeah, we haven't been able to demonstrate the existence of a deity. We haven't been able to do that. In so far as like scientific trials are concerned. Does that mean a god doesn't exist? I don't know, but we can perhaps judge different religious beliefs based on their claims. Perhaps we can weigh the merits of different religions based on said claims. But like, also, it kind of seems to me that people want evidence for claims, and wanting evidence for claims isn't a new phenomena. Prior to the existence of the scientific method, you still had to provide evidence for your claims. We've had like legal systems dating back thousands of years prior to the emergence and codification of the scientific method. Like, people needed to provide evidence for their claims in legal settings, in day-to-day life, etc. Like, this isn't rocket science. We know that's the case. All right. we made it through the text wall.
Understood the world through not comprehending the context their mental frame came from or what their language actually meant. The reason
also we think dreams are real. It's just that the way in which we believe that dreams are real is different. Like, people back in the day were like, when you go into a dream, you're in a different world, and like now we're like, well, no, you're in your brain, you're interacting inside of your head, so it's much more revelatory about what you're personally dealing with and interacting with. But like, does that mean your dream isn't real? No.
I'm articulating this here is that we know from history that we can invalidate and move on from old worldviews. This is just part of the process of human history, where as mankind develops as a species, our minds have to evolve in unison with our material level of development. This is a philosophic point that I really cannot justify the modernist world not understanding. It's just utterly insane we haven't hit this philosophic threshold yet, where we can't realize that if previous eras of history could be wrong, so will our era of history be, and we need to...
No! Everyone can grasp that, man. It's not a hard concept to realize that we could be wrong. Like, our knowledge is incomplete. I have no doubt that like my children and their children will like look back on like their great grandma and be like, damn, she was old and bonkers. she was wrong about some stuff. But like, that's life. You have to be comfortable being wrong sometimes. And damn, Rudyard's comfy.
Judge ourselves by the standard of what has already worked in history. Our era of history combines both profound self-loathing and delusional arrogance at the same time, which is the worst place to be. Instead, you should aim towards confidence and humility. The self-loathing is obvious, in which the West has developed into self-flagellation as its predominant religion and is now attempting to commit suicide.
I love that he will just throw out things without elaborating at all. Oh yeah, Western civilization is all about punishing yourself and like killing society, but no elaboration.
Both sides of the political spectrum, between left-wing environmentalists to right-wing traditionalists, openly hate modernity. At the very same time, the ego stems from thinking that we are such a superior age of history that there is no value in studying history.
The only people who think there's no value in studying history are like tech bros and the wealthy, because the tech bros and the wealthy, like, they want to prioritize and encourage a workforce that is obedient and skilled enough to do labor for, you know, the ruling class. Like, they devalue things like English literature degrees and history degrees on purpose because they do not see a monetary payoff for people being educated in those fields. It's capitalism, bro.
Academia has literally made it taboo and refuses to publish books on using history to study the world today.
What are you talking about? I have a degree in English literature and I minored in medieval history, and I can tell you universities aren't trying to throttle your ability to get books or to learn about history or like literary analysis to be able to understand it properly. Like, all of this just keeps going back to the fact that he doesn't think any real history books have been written since like the 1940s, which is an interesting time for him to pick.
All the major authors on this topic are either based outside the Western world, or from there, or are self-published non-academic authors.
I'm sorry. Okay, look, I'm just gonna look up Kurt Doolittle. Okay, because the list says that he's an autodidact. What this means is that inside the Western world, there has been a strong enough taboo on using history to understand the word that the only authors who do so are not academics or non-Westerners. Again, I studied history. I could tell you that this is bullshit. Why did he list the ethnicities? That's weird. Well, in case I haven't made it clear enough yet, by talking about how he believes in divine eugenics and esoteric Nazism, he's a racist. The weird part is that he's just a very racist fan. Now, Kurt Doolittle. Cool. This guy seems fucking nuts. Just taking a little bit of a gander at this man. He works at the Natural Law Institute and the emerging new generation of the feminine Abrahamic Marxist postmodern sequence. Amazing stuff from this guy. Oh, he has a Substack? Oh, and he's an anarcho-capitalist. Excellent. The top Reddit post from 9 years ago is in anarcho-capitalism, and the next one is Kurt Doolittle is a goldmine of bad philosophy. Oh man, it's just him getting raked. Oh god. Oh good. His Stack Overflow account. I'm a philosopher in the analytic Anglo-legal tradition. I gotta be honest, I've never encountered someone so racist that they refer to what they do as like being involved in the Anglo-legal tradition. The traditional Anglo-Saxon legal tradition. Incredible stuff. He works for the Propertarian Institute. I gotta know. I gotta know what the Propertarian Institute is. I gotta know about us. Let's go. It refers back to the Natural Law Institute, a think tank. Okay, yep. I understand what a think tank is. What's our goal? Solve the great problems of our age, come to settlement over the current civil war, and if not, to continue it until justice for all is achieved. Oh, wait. Who are our people? We are a movement of thinkers from around the world outside the ideological confines of the academy, with a deep empirical understanding of the personal, social, economic, and political failures of the past century and a half, and who seek a solution to the crisis of our age, not just for Americans, not just for the Anglosphere, not just for Western civilization, but for all mankind. The fact that you have Anglosphere in here at all is sussy as hell. God, what's happening over on Twitter for this account? It's not letting me on the Twitter these days. All right. It's fine. Let me just put it this way. I would not trust this man at all.
Or from there, or are self-published non-academic authors. No other era of history has ever been this arrogant in that they always valued the opinions of their ancestors. This is a very, very important philosophic point, which changes how you frame the entire world. In our current society, the way we actually operate is that the ruling authorities will fund scientific research to benefit their own self-interest. In most cases, these scientific
Yes, there is a problem with replicating scientific research and experimentation. That being said, one tends to find experiments built on the observed and demonstrable findings of other experiments. And if those fail, then it kind of shows that the previous experiment had a problem or flaw that needs to be revisited. This is just the scientific process in general.
Experiments are never replicated, and if you know how, there are so many ways to skew data to whatever point you want. Then the media and academia, who are part of the same system of control, enforce this on the public. Science is not our society's dominant code, but rather pseudoscientific ideology is. This is completely obvious once you compare all of the intellectual or academic information, as I'm excited to do so in this video. The reason the idea that every era of history can be wrong is so important, since it's a
baseline assumption. Yeah, no shit, dude.
Bulwark against our own foolishness and arrogance. In practical life, none of us are this foolish. We use common sense and reality filters in order to live, and you have to do the same thing on a macro geopolitical level. What nations say in their documents aren't who they are.
Oh, okay, here's a direct quote from Kurt Doolittle. Quote, "Our world is as genetic as that of domesticated animals. We are unequal, and it is more important that we suppress the reproduction of the lower classes than it is we attempt to improve the upper."
Their actions dictate that. Going forward, I'm going to refer to our current worldview.
Yeah, again, most of the guys that this person, that Rudyard recommends are like fascists or eugenicists or racists or some flavor of all. You know? We watch an esoteric fascist, Whatifalthist history. Yep. Modern, materialist, academic paradigm. The map paradigm is a term I actually got from a Twitter comment on my channel, so thank you. Oh, dude. You know that there's like a 90% chance that they're making fun of you, right? Like, do you not know the implication of being called a map? Man? Oh no. Oh no. All right. Okay. I just liked it. Okay. So thank you. But a term but it's a term for the modern materialist paradigm. It sounds obvious, but it's really a cohesive worldview with lots of different tenets, such as morality is universal, the avoidance of suffering is the highest good, everyone is equal, the only variables that drive the world are economic and tech without human character. History doesn't have valuable lessons to teach us. The divine does not exist, and many others. Again, you got to be able to demonstrate that the divine exists in order for other people to reasonably believe in it. Number one. Number two, like, no one's arguing that the only factors in world history are economic and technology. Number three here, morality is not universal. Like, a lot of different cultures have had a lot of different moral, like, decision-making processes and values.
Or paradigm as the map, or modern materialist academic paradigm. I'm using this to describe the general vision of the world which our current ruling class...
Yeah, man, you need to come up with a different name. Calling yourself a modern map is, oh boy.
Between academia, the government, and the media all share. When I say that we can't trust the information we know now, this is an example of what I mean. Imagine trying to explain electricity or computers to an ancient Babylonian. Keep in mind the idea of using rationality to explain the world stems from the ancient Greek.
What are you talking about? I'm pretty sure if you sat down with a human being of another era and, like, explained to them how a technology works and the basic functions of, like, various natural phenomena, I think they'd get it. And I think if you were able to demonstrate it, they would get it even faster because, you know, human beings like evidence for claims.
As did the hypothesis, or even the concept of the laws of nature. For the Babylonians, their entire worldview was based around gods with intentions.
Like, I'm sorry, I've watched too much Star Trek. I know that Jean-Luc Picard can explain technology to people who don't have said technology yet. Our checkmate, argument defeated. Jean-Luc Picard did it.
Willing reality into existence. The idea that you would study natural laws to gain mastery of them and do things like...
In most historic societies, you might be able to find a handful of hyper-advanced schizo-sorcerers who you could explain modern concepts to, but they're the exception, not the rule. No, I think you could explain different concepts to people, even if they weren't schizo-sorcerers. Which, like, I gotta be honest, that schizo-sorcerers does sound like a bangin' bad name. A band name, rather. This mentally hurts to listen to. Look.
I am very proud of the mental horsepower you have.
I'm so proud of the mental horsepower you all have. Okay? It takes a lot of mental horsepower to truly succeed in the face of such overwhelming... I don't even know really what to call this. Think of it as a spiritual journey, and as Rudyard, you're Gandalf.
The spirits like to convey the message that you should mentally see me as Gandalf.
There you go.
The Industrial Revolution simply would not be comprehensible to the Babylonians. This is why I refuse to have clear opinions on UFOs or a lot of physics. I'm sure there is some
I refuse. I'm sorry. I wasn't ready for him to be like anti-physics. I refuse to have clear opinions about UFOs. Okay, fair. Or most physics. Okay. All right. Okay.
lying principle here that explains these things, but
I refuse to have opinions about the existence of Bigfoot or ham sandwiches.
I'm highly doubtful that our society either has the mental models or the tools to understand how the world works completely. Imagine trying to explain the theory of—
What are you talking? If you just understand basic physics, you can understand that we don't have a full understanding. Like, just fucking Google the crisis in cosmology. Just man, just look up the fact that like we don't have a unified theory of quantum physics and like Einsteinian physics. Like, come on, man. Come on. But Jack, rockets are magic? Yeah, satellites aren't real.
Evolution to someone in the 17th century.
I'm gonna fucking lose it. People already had like a built-in understanding of different evolutionary processes. Because, and I can't stress this enough, human beings have been engaged in guiding evolution for like the last 50,000 years. The fucking agriculture that we do is predicated on the domestication of plants via selective breeding. The domestication of animals is predicated on selective breeding. That's guiding evolution. You could sit down with someone in the 1600s and explain the concept because they had comparable ideas already at play in agriculture and animal husbandry. Exactly, Snoogan. Oh, God. These ideas didn't pop out of nowhere. Jesus Christ.
Where you'd also have to articulate...
I'm sorry, but like it's wild that he's both making the argument that like in modernity, we might be wrong. I mean, you couldn't possibly explain to this person who lived hundreds of years ago about modern concepts. And it's like, yeah, you could, because they were also very intelligent. They had advanced societies and technology. Like, they were able to understand advanced concepts. Jesus. Elon nodding along to this, unironically. Can I find, I just want you all to know, like, this is real. A video I made explaining the history of Black America. Thoughtful. Viewed by 14 million people. Jesus Christ.
Lots of concepts, like that the world was not made by God 6,000 years ago, that mankind is a descendant from the apes, or
Again, the concept that, like, mankind didn't come from God 6,000 years ago. Other civilizations did not share that timeline. Not every Christian agreed with that timeline. And not everyone in those societies believed in Christianity. We did not descend from apes. We are apes. Yeah, but do you really expect this guy to understand basic concepts of evolution when he's already this wrong about everything? Guys, we are only... Can I just like pause real quick and be so for real with you right now? We are only 11 minutes and 27 seconds into this video that is an hour and 15 minutes long. I need you all to understand this, okay? Yes. Yeah, you guys thought we've made significant progress in here? Nah. We've barely scratched the surface of this video. We're an hour into breaking this down because it's so full of nonsense. Yeah, where are the schizo sorcerers when you need them? I grew up Christian and I didn't even know there were Christians that believed the earth was 6,000 years old until I was an adult. We were taught in Sunday school the earth is billions of years old and you shouldn't doubt science. That's wonderful. My dad didn't believe in evolution and taught me that creationism was true because God could do anything, so God could just create the world with age. And that's how he accounted for the world looking older. And yeah, that really did not help me understand the world better.
principles of genetics and heredity. Imagine trying to explain World War II to someone in the 15th century. You'd have to explain Germany unified, you had the Industrial Revolution, you'd have to explain what science was. It's just the world changes a lot.
Would you have to explain all of that? Because I don't think it's necessarily important information to explain to someone in the 1600s who Adolf Hitler was.
And remember that the universe doesn't owe you anything and is however complex and absurd as it wants to be.
You know, it's kind of telling that he thinks you'd have to tell people from hundreds of years ago who Hitler was. A pretty interesting thing to think.
I'm always shocked that this is such a difficult concept for thinkers today, in which practically no modernist thinkers broach this idea.
What you can do, I really appreciate your comment. This really has been the era of nonsense. Thank you for being the Warhammer-style Inquisitor against this chicanery. Yes, I'm happy to do my service.
This concept has just been intuitive to me ever since I was a child, that this era of history is not the ultimate arbiter, and we will make mistakes in the same way that every other era will.
Everyone else thinks that too, my guy. No one else thinks we have perfected our current modern era. Shut the front door. Studies plus ancient wisdom. Saw shows the convergence between what 21st century science has found with the traditional folkways and world cultures that have existed for millennia as opposed to the 20th century.
This is why I developed the concept of Saw, or how...
Oh yeah, this is his personal belief system at work, where he wants to essentially merge his beliefs that he likes about modernity with basically any other like folkloric wisdom that he sees fit to merge with it. You know? So get ready for some absolute nonsense.
Frequently, modern science from the 21st century matches up with ancient wisdom. It's often opposed to the pseudoscience of the 20th century. Alternately, a concept I invented is the universal scholar, which is if you put Plato, Aristotle, Confucius, Isaac Newton, Carl Jung, and Muhammad, just to name a handful of widely respected thinkers around the world in history.
Oh God, yeah. Okay, wait a minute. Okay. So, number one, okay, all right, okay, oh man, I'm hurting. The universal scholar, if you could get, for example, Isaac Newton, Confucius, Carl Jung, Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, Jesus, and George Washington to agree on something, it's probably true. If the greatest geniuses in history in wildly different contexts agree on something, it's probably the truth. Now, I do want to say it's pretty interesting to throw Carl Jung on and George Washington on the same level as Jesus Christ, Thomas Aquinas, Isaac Newton, and Confucius, considering that George Washington isn't a noted like academic or scholar at all, and Carl Jung has had every single one of his ideas thoroughly debunked and disproven. And now his ideas are only useful to inspire, you know, RPGs like Metaphor, Refantasio.
To a single room, that if they can agree on something, you can assert that it's probably true. Those thinkers are more intelligent than me, and I am not smart enough to understand all of their thought processes, but as a sort of probably
Imagine thinking that of yourself. Like, oh yeah, I'm too stupid to understand the thought processes of another human being. It's like, Jesus, man. I don't know. Have some fucking dignity.
Ballistic bet if they agree on something in different contexts, not
I have some faith in your abilities.
Aware of the others, it's probably true. If 99% of human history
I can't read things and understand their words, rumph.
Believe something, it's probably true. But the crazy thing is that modernity, in most cases, is opposed to what almost all humans in history believed. I find the idea
Yeah, because sometimes people in the past believed things that weren't true. You know, like, so sometimes the people in the past believed things that weren't true, like drinking mercury is good for you, or that you should take laudanum, or that, like, trust me, it's fine to sweeten a drink with lead. You know, sometimes people don't don't believe things that are true. And sometimes people believe things that aren't true.
That the universe has to be rational and logical, stemming from some warped view of medieval scholasticism
Oh no, I don't think this man goes to church. Like, his views are way too out there for him to be going to, like, a actual, like, standardized church.
From Plato has done an enormous amount of damage to modern people trying to understand the world. People want the world to be neat and to fit into charts. When things don't fit into charts, whether the complexities of human nature, the genome, the subconscious, culture, or quantum physics, people get angry, but that was never the point. Life is not reasonable. In fact, it is free.
Imagine if we had a system where people got together and then things they all found makes it more likely to be true. Yeah, if only we had some kind of system where people could get together and, like, I don't know, evaluate whether or not their observations and could line up with the observations of others, and, you know, perhaps test different aspects of their environment in order to compare their test results and broaden their base of knowledge. If only something like that existed. I don't know.
Frequently profoundly insane and disturbing. Life is only beautiful and worth living due to its chaos. As above, so below. For a brief frame of reference, and this should probably—
God, he actually said as above, so below. Dude's actually endorsing alchemy. Fucking moron. Oh yes, this is one of his favorite lists. Things all of the rest of history believe that we don't. 1. Men and women are biologically different. Wait, we do. Wait. Men and women are genders. Like, male and female are sexes. You could make the argument that sexes are different, but you can't make the argument that genders are are biologically different. 2. Race, sex, ethnicity, and class are partly biological. Hey, remember when I said that this guy thinks rich people and poor people have different biology? Yeah, I wasn't fronting. I wasn't kidding. 3. Progress is not an innate law of the world. Which, yeah, of course not. Everything can backslide at a moment's notice. A meteor could strike the planet and wipe out, like, all the collected knowledge of humanity. Yeah, of course. And then we'd be sent back to the Stone Ages. But we'd work our way back up, because people like to find more efficient and better ways of doing things, and we'd continue to do that. 4. Family, community, and nation is the bedrock of human life. Well, 1, nation states are relatively new. Community... I would say community is the bedrock of human life. Community, of course, also includes family, so I feel like it's kind of redundant there. 5, war is a nasty reality to accept. Man, he reuses this word text wall in a lot of videos. You'd think he would catch the typos. 6, equality doesn't really exist. Yeah, but when we talk about equality, we're talking about equality under the law, in the eyes of the state, man. Treating people with respect. Also, wait, I don't think anyone disagrees that war is a nasty reality to accept, because I'm pretty sure everyone has thought that, always. Like, war is deeply unpleasant. 7, the greatest things are divine, and the lowest are demonic. 8, well, I just reject the idea of divine and demonic inherently. You got demonstrate a demon to me, demonstrate the divine to me, and then we'll talk. 8, there are archetypal forms to the universe. Demonstrate them. Produce for me the archetypal form of a chair. Go for it. 9, human nature is innately fallible. Yeah, we all agree with that. That's why we need a fucking scientific method. 10, there is a divine and spirit world. Fucking demonstrate it, motherfucker. 11, consciousness exists in its own right. Okay, demonstrate that to me. Take your brain out and demonstrate your consciousness exists. Do it. I would love to see that. It'd be really cool. 12, happiness has more to do with values and connection than with material wealth. Wait, that one's true though. That one's unironically true. To an extent, because you do need a certain level of material wealth to meet your basic needs and have a certain level of security in which to maximize your happiness. There have been studies on this, by the way. I think the numbers around, or was at the time of the study, around like $80,000 per year seems to be when happiness kind of maxes out for an individual. But of course, you know, mileage may vary depending on your different situations. 13, that the universe is a self-reflexive conscious system. What? Okay, demonstrate me universe consciousness. Like, this guy thinks we live in a fucking Marvel movie. 14, that history operates in a cycle of bad times, decadence. Oh shit, he's doing the fascist thing. He's doing the fascist thing. Like, the hard times create like hard men, and hard men create good times create soft men create hard times. He's doing the fucking cycle thing. God damn it.
Be a topic of its own video in its own right, but practically all societies in history before the modern world believed that heredity was at least a large part of sex, race, class, and other things. They believed in the divine.
Yeah, and they were wrong. Like, yeah, sex is partly biological. Yeah. But class is not. Jesus.
Fine, and a great chain of being which stretched from lower forms to higher forms,
yes,
where it was
is.
our duty to move upwards. They believed that
The point is, he wants hard men. He's got no use for soft men. Yeah, exactly.
Things like tradition or the nation or culture were necessary.
Do you think Rudyard understands sex? You know, I gotta admit, I do think he has had sex because he's talked about it. I don't know that he understands it. You know what I'm saying?
Bulwarks against a fallible human nature, that war and other unpleasant things like plague were just part of the simulation, and we had to accept them and do our best to compete in these systems. They saw history as fairly cyclical, where you see patterns continue again and again, and they...
Man, I love this fucking nonsense chart. Wowee.
Saw the entire universe as a place with meaning built into it, where it was our duty to live out that meaning as much as possible, where the material exists to serve the ideal, where there are these broader archetypal principles which God created, and humans have to live out these archetypes, like goodness or evil.
Or having one titty, like this guy over here. You know, it's hard living in a world with just the one titty, okay? Then you got to compete with this guy who got 2 titties.
Or higher or lower forms, or justice or tyranny, or these things. Again, the societies that would have agreed with this include all of pre-modern European history, Greco-Roman classical civilization, the major Asian civilizations, the major tribal peoples, and prehistory, where modernist people do not understand how separated they are from the vast majority of people in human history.
Man, can we just like go back and be like, oh, he's labeling this the tribal peoples, and it's a map of Asia in 1000 AD, i.e. China, China's empire would have been in full swing for like the last several thousand years by this point.
Understand how separated they are from the vast majority of people in human history. And if we're totally unwilling to investigate if over 95% of people in history were wrong in their worldview, that is profoundly dangerous. A really good example for how you end up with the silliness of the current map paradigm is that people today like to build a series of logical arguments which can then be added together towards the end result they want.
Yeah, using logical reasoning to arrive at a conclusion. That does kind of make sense, doesn't it? Rather than the alternative.
Think of Karl Marx, who built a theory assuming Hegel's theory of the historic dialectic was correct, then assuming that only economic or material variables propelled human nature or history, then that there was a natural arc of history which bent towards the lower classes. After that...
What are you talking about, man? Yeah, the natural arc of history bends towards the lower classes because there's more of us. Like, that's why there are more. Like, it's hard to control a large number of people, and the working class under capitalism in the modern era, it's very hard to control, which is why we go towards democracy. The goal is to continue to go towards democracy.
That all of human nature was innately equal, where the only variable in economic progress was the upper classes oppressing the lower classes. Finally, that the culmination of this process was the creation...
Oh, Jesus, what is this? I'm probably missing some things here. There are loads of tiny communist movements I can't keep track of. Inform me of some of in the comments. The communist rebels, communist by conquest, communist by choice, communist leaning. Ah, yes, communist leaning India. As if India wasn't ruled by a far-right fascist.
Of an anarchic, totalizing state through revolution that would just work because it was destined by history to work. I call this method
as if clauses. This is a term I've invented, because again, he invents a lot of his analysis. Much like coding, when you make a logical cause for as if blank would be true, then blank would be true. This is a logical pattern modern people really like, since it appears logical and mathematical. The issue here is that people will frequently not check if these assumptions are even correct and then get the implications wrong too. Yeah, it'd be wild to encounter someone with unquestioned assumptions. Definitely couldn't be Rudyard. This means that it's very easy to string together a series of arguments that make you seem smart, but then not fact check. This makes the entire argument bunk. People think the more you add, the smarter you are. Well, in reality, you're removing yourself from basal truth. Guys, how did he write this? With not a shred of self-awareness whatsoever. How did he do that? Like, fuck, man. India is geopolitically aligned with Russia and was aligned with the Soviet Union. I think that's what he's getting at. But like that was supposed to be a current map. Russia's not currently communist. Like Vladimir Putin, no, it wasn't? What?
That would just work because...
If it's not, then why isn't there a year on it? I can't recall a time when India was communist or even communist leaning. Where's the year? It's not... There isn't a year on here because everything he makes is bullshit.
It was destined by history to work. I call this method adding as if clauses. Like coding, people seem to think that the more as if clause...
You know, I need to get that for the soundboard, Ms. Milena. You think someone would really do that? Go on the internet and tell lies?
The smarter they are. They think they're building Legos on top of each other to make a beautiful structure. Well, in reality, they're just building Jenga, where the more clauses they add...
I can't I can't help but note that this is not Jenga. Why are you showing Legos when you're talking about Jenga, my dude?
The less likely the final endpoint of the argument here is correct. The issue with arguments like this is that if one link in this chain of logic is wrong, it means Marxism as an ideology will not work in the real world. I hope you notice that
okay, now he's showing the Jenga, okay.
With the way I write my videos, I try to minimize as-if clauses as much as possible, and I try to understand the real context of a situation for what it is. As-if clauses are a pretty serious issue since this very chain of
ideologies by mass death. Communism, 67 million. Civil wars involving communists, 26 million. All religions combined, 47 million. Fascism, 20 million. No other ideologies even really make it on the list. All others are 2 million. If you blame World War II only on fascism, which I don't think is fair, you get 65 million deaths. What about capitalism, though? Just out of curiosity, what about capitalism and the entire colonial system and the whole manifest destiny thing? Capitalism zero. Ha! Painless ideology. Ha ha. Yeah, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I would wager that bringing up like the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, the daily attrition of capitalism itself, that, where people, even in the richest country on earth, die due to lack of healthcare, not to mention the capitalistic system of exploitation that leads to a lot of people dying around the world in order to continue said system of exploitation. Wasn't that before capitalism? No, colonialism occurred under capitalism. The transatlantic slave trade and capitalism largely coincide. And it's why people connect the two, right? Capitalism was the theory of Adam Smith, who lived in the late 1700s. Yeah, but there was also mercantilism, which was the predecessor to capitalism and formed the bedrock of Adam Smith's ideas, which is why people largely trace capitalistic commodification and systemization to the transatlantic slave trade, which again predated Adam Smith. You can find a lot of the elements that Adam Smith writes about before Adam Smith describes them, because Alan Smith, the issue you're running into is that Adam Smith describes the system of capitalism. It is a descriptive thing, not prescriptive. So what he is describing is what mercantilism has become over time. What the transition from the feudal economies of old to the capitalistic system. Adam Smith is describing that. It is not a prescription, it is a description. And so mercantilism was largely a shift away from the feudal era to the capitalistic era. Hope that makes sense. Because I think we can all agree that Adam Smith didn't invent capitalism and then sell it to people. That's not what happened there. He was describing things in his work that previously existed. Kind of like how Marx in Das Kapital is not inventing capital. He's describing the system of capital. Again, largely, most historians will trace the birth of the transatlantic slave trade with the codification and creation of capitalism as a system. Because again, the transatlantic slave trade took time to set up. Colonialism took time to ramp up. Largely, the two are interrelated. So people associate the two, and historians write about them in tandem. So what is this source? Unsure about the question.
Logic was used to murder downwards of 100 million people. The way our worldview became a lie was through this trick. Another element here is that for most of these ideas, when they were tested, they were proven to be demonstrable.
Oh, he's citing a source on that side. Oh, yeah. Excellent question, Coder Joe. Let's take a look at Matthew White. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm guessing this isn't the American singer, songwriter, producer, and arranger. Atrocities? An incomplete number of 100 million deaths due to capitalism. Genuinely, though, I feel like that's a really incomplete number, and I feel like it really depends on how you calculate the deaths. Let's see. Oh, it's a co-production between Matthew White and Steven Pinker. That explains a lot. Yeah, Steven Pinker is one of those race realists. He's a racist.
The way our worldview became a lie was through this trick. Another element here is that for most of these ideas, when they were tested, they were proven to be demonstratively incorrect, or they never tested these ideas in the first place, or they built structures to actively avoid testing them. Marxism or Freudianism are great examples where built into their implicit structure is that anyone who tries to falsify them are either class enemies or repressed.
Oh, God. The closed loop, the greatest philosophic failing of our era, which has killed over 150 million people so far. In lots of world cultures, you have the symbol of the worm, Ouroboros, with the Norse Midgard serpent being one of the best examples. What this symbolizes is the tendency of things to not be able to see past low growth cycles and not integrating feedback for growth. An example of this is low trust governments where the government steals private property. People don't produce things, so both the government and people grow poor. Philosophically, this is modernity's failing of using definite definitions to avoid reality. Modernist philosophers like Karl Marx, Hegel, or Freud are used highly autistic definitions to control reality and then say they're right by definition. Marxists are the worst at this, where they'll make up new terms and then change the terms, so there's literally no way to disprove Marxism ever. Postmodernism, they argue sex and race or even directly reality does not exist since we can change the definitions. What this does is it allows rationalizing literally everything, which allows the greatest evils. Okay.
This means they're stuck in the closed loop, where they use definitions which say that...
Oh, Matthew White, the author, has been criticized for his use of made-up historical statistics. Interesting.
They're correct by definition, since they defined their terms that way. Modernity's great issue is confusing the finger pointing at the moon with the moon itself. This makes our culture profoundly gullible and silly. That's since we will build an entire worldview off foundations that are just incorrect, and then invalidate the entire project. This is one of the things I see the map paradigm does, which just makes me facepalm. The map paradigm will demand an enormous amount of effort and willpower in order to attain goals that don't even make sense. For example, the entire communist experiment, which again killed like 80 million people, was based off economic principles which anyone with any degree of knowledge or wisdom knew were totally incorrect at the time of Marx.
Now, I'm going to put out there that Karl Marx is taught in college level courses to this day because Capital is a very useful examination of how capital functions. That's number one. Number two is that I want someone to point out how the state controlling a factory or a farm is equivalent to what Marx called for, which is workers controlling the factory or the farm. Because those are very different things. And what's interesting to me is that Rudyard doesn't seem to have any knowledge of that whatsoever. So he's like, yes, communism. the stateless, classless, moneyless society of the USSR, I guess. I don't know. You gotta be pretty dull if you think that, again, what is advocated in communism is a stateless, classless, moneyless society, and like you look at the USSR and none of those things are true, and workers did not control their own workplaces or even have like full democratic representation within like their state at the bare minimum. Like, nah. No. These are not this is not the economic system that Marx was advocating for.
Wokeness or Nazism as examples are just based off objectively incorrect.
Oh, God. All right. Both wokeness and Nazism are guilty of basically being utterly delusional in a few ways. Nazism, the Germans were not actually racially superior to the Slavs, and the Slavs beat the Germans. I love that. The idea that, like, well, they weren't actually racially superior, but if they were, though, what insane shit. Germany had not, in fact, been stabbed in the back during World War I, and the Jews weren't destroying Germany. The Nazis declared war on the entire world out of delusion and lost. Their financial policy basically killed Germany's economy through debt and inflation. Wokeness, total denial about biology or human nature. Trans is the most obvious insanity where men and women are clearly different. God, I want him to do a whole video about how men and women are clearly different. Please put that out. I would love it so. People are biologically different and equality is a lie. Just because one demographic is richer than another doesn't mean it was caused by repression. Our financial policy also killed us through debt and inflation. I love that he's trying to argue that Western civilization is being killed by its own ideologies and capitalism isn't leading to the deaths of anyone, while simultaneously arguing that debt and inflation, two fundamental concepts in capitalism, are killing Western civilization. But it's interesting that the death toll doesn't get added onto the previous slide, but that's fine. Even his claims don't really make sense together.
Principles or ideas, and thus any attempt to reach them will always backfire. You can't have an incorrect idea and then be shocked that it doesn't work. Nietzsche said that overwork was a symptom of modernity, or using constant busyness as a way to get out of the 2 or 3 major things that really matter to the course of your life. In the ancient or medieval worlds, your life was naturally organized around the things which would give you the most meaning. That meant that through the process of living, you would naturally cultivate meaning so you'd be happy on your deathbed. In the map paradigm, the world is organized around the most meaningless things first, like hedonism or—
Wait, I'm sorry. So you'd be happy on your deathbed. I think like the idea that like the point of you living a good life was so that you'd be happy on your deathbed. I don't think people work that way. I don't think that's ever like, oh yes, you must live a good life so that you're happy when you die. I don't know how compelling that is. I think people want to be happy now and in the future, and like the idea of you must suffer so that you can smile while you die is that's weird. That's a weird concept to imprint upon entire swaths in time periods.
The world is organized around the most meaningless things first, like hedonism or comfort, while totally ignoring the concept of meaning. This is why we have a suicidally nihilistic society.
I love that he's like, yes, look, a rave, suicidal nihilism.
To get started going through the evidence later in this video, if you're wondering how this happened, the short answer is that MAP is like a student who just keeps making an equation larger and larger, pouring huge amounts of effort into it. But the thing is, the math is just wrong, so it doesn't matter. Modernity never checks to see if its assumptions are even correct.
That's just not true. There are hundreds of millions of people in this country alone, and people are definitely double-checking each other's work.
There is no quality control. This is ironic since
The Iron Law of Science from Michael Streven's book, The Knowledge Machine. Okay, well, new reference. Michael Strevens. Is this guy a Nazi? Doesn't seem like it. Perhaps we perhaps we found like an actual guy. Okay. Yeah, this guy seems like just a guy. Wait, let's take a look at Knowledge Machine. During the 17th century scientific revolution, a small handful of radical thinkers, among them Francis Bacon and Isaac Newton, hit upon a way of investigating the mysteries of the natural world. Okay, so it's a book about, like, the codification of the scientific method. The knowledge machine demonstrates that the invention of modern science required not more but less rationality. By willfully ignoring religion, aesthetic beauty, and especially philosophy, scientists embraced an unreasonably narrow method of inquiry, whose very narrowness channeled unprecedented energy into the observation and experiment. The same force has driven the success of science ever since. But, like, science didn't ignore religion, or aesthetic beauty, or philosophy. Like, science didn't ignore, like, people attempted to apply the scientific method to each one of those endeavors. Like, people have been trying to scientifically prove Christianity, for example, for ages. People have been trying to, scientifically, objectively prove aesthetic beauty or like archetypal forms or like all that shit since the scientific revolution. Yeah, early geology was all about Noah's flood. Exactly.
Science, and especially so after peer review, which emerged after World War II.
How much more of this is left? Literally 55 minutes. We have gotten through 20 minutes of this.
Could have done the opposite, but this has clearly not been the case in applied reality. We made a false imitation of the world as our worldview and then didn't check the relationship between our simulation and the original. One of the points James Burnham made that's so brilliant in his prophetic book called The Suicide of the West that was written in 1961 was that when you interact with the progressive, you're dealing with their mental projection of the world, not the reality. When the left thinks of black people, they have their own mental image of blacks as progressive, helpless babies, which bears very little
Jesus Christ.
resemblance to actual living black people. If their economic policies fail, it's always the right's fault, since their worldview was designed to have no feedback loop to reality to disprove it. That since the left is built off the abdicating of responsibility. The reason we did this was several-fold. The first is that the staggering wealth and progress of the last few centuries in the Western world made delusion very easy. The title for this segment is a play on words, that this false worldview is both an outcome of an understandable failing of human nature, that any population which experienced as much success as the West did would have an ego issue. The good thing is that the West largely did not use this power in a totalitarian manner to lord it over the world's inhabitants and made the decision to pull back and try to be more moral. At the same
God, you guys might be in disbelief when I say I'm grateful that the West has not used the power of modernity in a purely tyrannical, imperialist, or totalitarian way. What I mean by that is that the reason our era of history is bad is that in the last generation, the good guys won. If you look at any outcome of the 20th century, the Western Christian nations of America, but secondly, Britain, France, and I'd even throw in the Kaiser's Germany, were decent nations. If the Soviets, Nazis, Japanese, or Marxists won, we'd be living in a very, very ugly world today. The 20th century nearly became 1984, or mass genocide. It nearly became mass genocide? The 19th... it only nearly became mass genocide, not... Oh, God. And the work of good men prevented it. Only in a world where America won would the late 20th century have seen the near utopian prosperity it did.
Now these are typical head shapes.
Oh, Sake Tanuki, if it genuinely at any point in the last 20 minutes of this, it has felt like he's on the verge of breaking out the calipers for real. Also, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much for supporting stream. And if anyone else would like to support, we've been doing this for like 2 hours. It's taken us 2 hours to get through 20 minutes of this. But if you're getting anything out of the stream, folks, please hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and consider dropping those subs, donos, memberships, super chats, etc. if you feel so inclined. I can't believe that we're still going. I can't believe we are not even farther in this. America won would the late 20th century have seen the near utopian prosperity it did, alongside the development of the third world in a global system. You describe utopian prosperity, then talk about the development of the third world? Like, fuck you, dude. In fact, it was so good that we slammed into mouse utopia and total social collapse due to the enabling weakness. We avoided nuclear war, and the West even gave up its colonies willingly. Those are pretty incredible things by historic standards. Ah, yes. The West gave up its colonies willingly. No major reasons for them to drop the rule over colonies whatsoever. Nothing to do with, the underlying problems of suppressing an entire population on the other side of the world. But okay.
Time, the core lie of this false worldview was the misunderstanding of human nature, which
also colonies still exist. Also, the United States was doing like a genocide in the Philippines prior to World War I. Like, come on, dude.
Discuss in The Greatest Lie Ever Told. The counterintuitive nature of a lot of real science meant that people could use science-y sounding terms to pretend that the sky was red somehow. I mean,
the sky can be red, man. Have you never seen a sunset or a sunrise? God damn it.
If you talk about physics, most of it does not make sense to normal people.
Also, you're ascending kitten. Thank you for the $5
I'm getting
dono.
something from the stream. Brain damage.
It's true. I did try and warn you all before we got too deep into this. Also, Yannick de Nieuwburg, thank you for the €5. Very much appreciated.
It feels almost like malpractice to not be wearing a pith helmet for these segments.
It does. It does almost feel like malpractice. I do want to remind folks in the site chat, you do have the colonialism emote that you could be using. And while it doesn't have a pith helmet, it does have a British man with a bowler hat. So I feel like functionally the same.
Or math, and so it's easy to convince them that the world itself does not make sense. Secondly, the rise of democracies and mass societies alongside the huge scale of the Industrial Revolution meant that there was a large incentive to believe things that sounded pleasant and placated as many people as possible.
Dang, Chad, a 10x combo? I don't know that I've seen you do that well hardly ever. Well done.
Get into large enough groups, the incentive is no longer truth-seeking, but rather it becomes placating its own hive mind. Unlike earlier eras of history which were aristocratic, in our society the ruling regime needs to use science to maintain their right to rule as technocrats. Thus,
what are you talking about? Our ruling class aren't technocrats. They're oligarchs. Like, they're not ruling because of the virtue of their technology. Like, China has, like, CEOs of smartphone companies, too. Like, it's not... Okay.
They have to control and indoctrinate the population to stay in power.
Just like Obama. Obama was a technocrat. Look at all of his phones. we just made it to part 2, chat. We're at part 2, and it is now 3:00 in the morning where I am, and I've been streaming for 5.5 hours. Oh fuck. He just never got to the point. Well, his point is that he believes that modernism creates a false reality that prevents you and I from seeing what actually exists. Right? So his premise here is that modernity has created a set of definitions, and in order to discover the real truths about the world, you need to look back for the commonalities between previous ages of the world and civilizations of the world, because in aggregate, they must, like, the ideas that they had in common altogether must clearly be true. You know? And it's bizarre, to say the least. You know? Here, I will back it up to where we stopped.
I think there's no analysis where socialism in the long term works. You have some European socialist
look, I don't know. I think a democracy can work. I think socialism can work because socialism relies upon democracy as its bedrock. People just like freedom.
Countries, which look good on paper now, but they've still witnessed the continent slide into irrelevancy. I mean, most political scientists are statistically either Marxist or sympathetic.
That's not true at all. Like, at all.
And that's a completely failed political ideology by any metric. I very rarely see political science try to explain the world or tackle causation.
That's because political science is like the science of like political movements, and like there's like some sociology sprinkled in there, but it's for like people who want to run campaigns. I'm gonna be done here. I can't handle it. I can't handle it anymore. I can't do it. That was really painful. I thought I could get back into it. I think I'm cooked tonight, chat. I think I'm cooked. This was transphobic. I mean, it literally was, and also it was additionally transphobic, for sure. Thank you for your sacrifice. Look, you guys earned this content, and I'm trying to deliver it as best I can. She got Rudyarded. I need to rest. It was too mentally taxing for my dainty feminine brain. Anyway, that's part 1 of this entire reality is a lie. So, you know, that's where we're at.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.